we have two big things coming up. Well, one of them's big. The other one's just kind of a special. But we have a big reveal for something that's going to be a major part of Tom King's Wonder Woman run. So debuting in Wonder Woman issue 800. So make sure you all pre-order if you definitely want that comic. Yep. Trinity, a new character that is Wonder Woman's daughter from the future. When I say from the future, I mean, like, you know, the image that they've put out of her as an adult. So this is her in the future. Right. I suspect there may be a kid version in the present day at some point. But yeah, so they made this big reveal about this week. Tom King's done the interview rounds specifically with IGN, I think. So I don't know, thoughts, feelings? There's now a Wonder Woman daughter coming into the mix.
I mean, one of the images I saw was her and Damian and John, but it was Damian in the trench coat Batman suit from Batman 666, and then John looking like just a much older version of himself. And it was a shot from behind, so it looked like they were going into somewhere. So curious that her name is Trinity.
I get it.
That's what that means, yeah. With or like, also like, does she actually have like a human dad, or is it more like Diana, you know, doing what her mom did, right? The molding from clay type deal. So like she's a third iteration or something.
Is that even canon now, though?
I don't even know. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked that versus her being Zeus's daughter.
Yeah. I don't think that's canon. I mean, honestly, like I can never keep track of what version of the origin we're on, but I want to say it's not canon right now. Yeah, I mean, the name makes enough sense to me. I mean, Tom King doing interviews has been kind of saying that he liked the idea of Damien and John having a younger sister they can look after, and it kind of mirrors his kids because he has 3 kids, 2 of which are pretty much the same age, and then one who's like 5 years younger, and that's kind of, I mean, admittedly, she'll be at least 13, 14 years younger than Damien, unless there's some timey-wimey nonsense to get into things. Or she secretly had this kid like years ago, and just now is getting her out of Themyscira or something. I don't know. But I will say, like, I sort of like appreciate that there's probably a purpose to this, and I can see some interesting ideas for stories, and there is an interesting concept to having a child of each of the Trinity. And this one's literally called Trinity, but you have each of them have a kid, and they're kind of this new younger generation. I will say it kind of felt like for a while we were setting up Yara to be the Wonder Woman of that trio, and I feel like this is just kind of
undercutting,
sidelining her, especially since Yara's not really had anything in quite a bit of time now.
And considering that it seems like King and I'm drawing a blank on her name, the artist, are so good that created Yara, right? When
I thought you meant Trinity. I'm really talking about it's Daniel Sampier.
No. So it seems that they're such close friends too. You know, that seems like an odd thing, but whatever. This also just could be like a one-off type story too, because we know how King does this type of stuff.
I don't know. I feel like they're making the big announcement of saying she's debuting in issue 800. At least makes me think she's going to be a prominent character in his run. So I think the thing for me is that because we've barely had a chance to really flesh out Yara and have her own stories in her own time as the Wonder Girl, I suppose, if you want to call her that, of of her era, it does kind of feel like there is a concern that maybe we're ballooning some of these like characters' families up a bit too much. And I don't mean literal. I mean, obviously she's literally her daughter, but I mean, in the larger sense, the Bat family. Includes so many Batgirls and Robins now and all that stuff. Superman obviously now has these twins that and the story's but great to get to that point in action. Connor Kent's a bit of a spare wheel that could just be left behind again, to be honest. But
I want to argue, but I can't, because John has really taken up all of that real estate. Like all the stuff that I missed with having Connor, now John's doing by getting to be like, Superman's son and try to step out of the shadow. So it kind of makes me not miss John, or not miss Connor.
Yeah, and I think you could be upset about that, but at least Connor Kent did have a long time where he was, he was in the Teen Titans, or he was in Young Justice. You know, he had his time as Superboy.
Yeah.
He had like a long time where he was that in that slot. So at least you have that, and it's not like you're taking something away of a character who's actually still pretty recent. Whereas potentially here with Yara, like this could just be like that's her done now. She's just always going to be this niche character that never really get a chance to flourish or have the spotlight on her. So I don't know.
And it depends what they do with her group out of the Amazon too in Brazil, right?
If anything,
that was a whole part. Yeah, that was a whole part of it too that led to her, and it was this different side of the mythology of the Amazons. So, but yeah, I mean, it felt for a while DC was stagnating on characters, and now it almost feels like they've gone the opposite direction where there's almost too many.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't have time.
They're introducing more, and they're not like giving enough time to the ones that are already around.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that. Because if you look at like the Bat characters, like, or even the Batgirl specifically, like each one had their time and they had their run, right? Some were longer than others to an extent, right? And it's kind of weird because Babs kind of got her time as Batgirl after the others, even though she was first canonically. But whatever. There was an era where Cass had her book for a number of years. Steph only got her book for 2 years, but it was very good and it was very memorable. But that was a good example of when the New 52 started, we all felt like her time got cut short. Like we could have went for another couple of years with her. Right. So,
well, and how many issues did that get up to? It was in the 30s, right?
No, 24.
24? It was only 2 years. Wow.
Yeah, it was almost exactly 2 years of single issues. Yeah.
Well, but yeah.
I guess I would assume that Yara now is just going to kind of feel like Cassie Wonder Girl, where she'll pop in for the odd cameo, but she's never really going to necessarily have that much now. At least, unless there's a reversion later on where we go back to her because maybe no one else wants to use the Trinity character.
Yeah, but it feels like each of the main, outside the Bat family, because I feel like they all kind of get used in stories. That each of them kind of have this middle character that's not like they're kind of a teenager, but they also could just be a young adult. Because over in Flash, you also have Wallace. He pops in from time to time, but there's now you have Wally's kids and you have Bart back and all of these too. So it just seems like there's almost this other lost generation. Like there was the Young Justice lost generation a couple years ago. So. But yeah, we'll see. I just like to follow the stories now and see whatever's popping off. So like, again, you were talking about Connor Kent earlier. If that book ends up being good, we can do stuff like that. These little side jaunts for the Connor fans like myself. And he doesn't get forgotten about.
Yeah, but like, I'm not going to read any more of that because the first issue felt kind of just skippable to me.
I would not describe you in any sense of the word a Connor Kent fan.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think like his miniseries is ever going to feel important because they don't want that character to be important. It is just a scrap for the people who like him to, hey, you got a book, shut up.
Right.
It's never actually going to be like a big grand story that reinvents the character as his next big chapter, Right. And I think that's the concern as more and more kind of start to feel like they're left behind. And I have this problem so I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil games, and there's like an issue that we have now with that franchise where there's people like me who were there from the start and love the original era more than anything. And there's people who came in with Resident Evil 4 when it turned into more of an action series and they love that era. And then it turned into this first person horror thing with Resident Evil 7. And there's people who sort of came in that newer era. And it's basically impossible now to make a Resident Evil game that will satisfy all the fans of it because all the fans have different ideas of what they think it should be. And I feel like there's a similar thing that happens with these characters where when you add new generations of characters, some people are really attached to one Robin or they're really attached to one Batgirl or one Wonder Girl or whatever. And they're annoyed when it's not their one that's getting the spotlight. And obviously there's some flexibility and you have to have a bit of a reasonable expectation of like growth and things changing, but like it is a concern. It's something that can pop up.
Yeah, but then I also like to look at the silver lining in something like you got stuff like Danger Street, right, that takes these characters, granted it's decades later, that were like featured in one-offs. Maybe there's a writer that's not a writer yet that can do something interesting down the line. That's what's great about comic books. Nothing's ever really lost as long as someone remembers it, you know? So you just got to keep it in the memory.
It is worth mentioning, though, everything we're talking about here that's a potential concern is all just sort of more greater scope DC stuff. Yeah. Neither one of us at any point in this conversation has said we're worried about the storytelling that might happen, because we're not. Like, I'm sure. Well,
especially with King and Sampier together, like that's a team right there. So I'm kind of willing to follow them on whatever story.
Yeah, and this is going to go. Not everything King's ever done has been great. It may end up not being his best work, but he's definitely earned the benefit to give a try and see how it pans out.
Yeah, I mean, but if this was the current team on Wonder Woman introducing a daughter character, I don't think we'd be talking about it this much.
Yeah, we'd barely be paying attention.
Yeah, so.
I don't know. It would barely make the news probably if it wasn't like a new run with a new team and So yeah, but we'll see. I mean, we're gonna talk about it later. I'm just happy to have a Green Lantern book back, right? So there's other like more established characters that I'm happy to get into and read while we're doing new things in other sections. But that's just me. Yeah. So yeah, that is the Trinity news. Wonder Woman's daughter coming in action. Wonder Woman 800, and then of course into Tom King's Wonder Woman run. They also announced a one shot this week, coming in. So it's Action Comics presents Doomsday Special Issue 1. And this is going to be a story where Supergirl and Martian Manhunter fight Doomsday. So, it's 48 pages, comes from Dan Waters and artist Eddie Barrows, who we mainly know, I think, from the Tynion era of Detective Comics.
Eddie Barrows also did the with Venditti, the Freedom Fighters.
Okay, yeah. That sounds familiar.
So, very, very good action sequences. So I'm excited to see Martian Manhunter versus Doomsday in some form.
So this is coming in August. Didn't we already have August solicits?
I feel like we did, but maybe not. Maybe it was July.
No, I think we did, but sometimes they'll do like a little sneaky one at the end of the month that's in the next month's solicits, and I'm wondering if that's what they've done here. But regardless, so 48-page book. I'm always down for another Supergirl story. I like the character quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, sure. I mean, Dan Waters and Eddie Barrows are strong enough creative names. They're not off-putting in any way. There's a nice front cover that's doing the rounds of Doomsday sitting on what's essentially a throne in a world that Doomsday would be a king. So, take that for what he's not wearing a crown or anything, though, admittedly.
No. He's sitting on the throne.
Just sitting on the throne. But it's a nice cover. So, no. Not much to really add. It just there's a bit of the description here. In the wake of Dark Crisis on Lazarus Planet, King Doomsday now sits on a throne of skulls across a river of blood, holding court over the demons that swarm the depths of hell, and he may have just found a way back to the land of the living. It's now up to Supergirl and Martian Manhunter to drive the beast back and see that he never again returns to our earthly plane, even if they must die to do it. Plus the return of Bloodwind and the debut of the Doomhounds, and a clue to the next big Superman event. So it's going to tease another Superman story coming up. But
yeah,
cool.
Weird that Doomsday's sitting in hell, like, because considering he's so science-based, it's weird that's a direction. I'm not surprised at Dan Waters, right?
Yeah,
but
Yeah, and it is the very end of it. It's August 29, so I wonder if they're sneaking this in the September solicits.
And the next ones,
yeah. So that's cool. And that sounds like it might be a week 5 as well, so it's probably a good week for it as well.